Okay, I'm a heavy listener at podcast, and I've tried a lot of different podcast apps for both iOS and Android, and I have found one that is the best I have tried yet, and it's called Player FM. And if I start Player FM here, we see all the podcasts I have subscribed to. Not a lot, but a few. And the best thing with Player FM is that when you have listened to a new episode, a new podcast episode, it automatically continue to start and play the next podcast I have in line that is downloaded and it's new and so on. So I don't have to manually start the next podcast. I think that's a great feature. And one of the best things too with the Player FM is that the effects that you have, let's turn the volume down here, the effects you have when playing a podcast. When you have
the Daily Tech headlines for Monday, November. Tom Merritt. CNN announced.
When you have a podcast playing like this, you have some effects that you can choose. And as you can see here, I can of course play it faster or slower by just hitting this button, and that feature many different podcast apps has, but the feature that is new and unique to Player FM is less noise. This feature, less noise, I think that's a brilliant feature because that makes some podcasts have a better audio quality. And you can also skip silence. A lot of podcast apps can do that too. And raise volume. And raise volume works really great in Player FM because it feels like it normalizes the sound. So the sound feels normalized when listening to it. So some people are more silent than other, but with that feature on, you can listen to the podcast with a better normalizing sound. So I like that feature. So these kinds of features is really cool in Player FM, especially less noise. That feature is unique. I haven't found any other podcast app that has that feature. So that's really great. Other things that's really great in this podcast app is that you can stream, you can download, and you can do all that automatically, and you have really cool looking notifications for new podcast episodes and all that. And you can import podcasts from other apps you have tried and so on. And you can also use Player FM in your web browser, so you can get to all your podcasts from any web browser and so on by logging into your account. So that's pretty nifty. And one new feature that is available for beta testers like me is that you can categorize your podcast. So for example, here I have a category called Android, so I can have my Android podcasts in one category. So basically that feature makes it possible to categorize your podcast into different categories, as you can see. I have only added one category and it's called Android, but you also have a MISC category as a default category from Player FM. But these features are quite neat, and as you can see, the podcast thumbnails looks kind of beautiful when listening to a podcast and so on. And I think it's pretty neat to have these thumbnails and so on, so I can, like this for example, as you can see, in portrait mode, and you can have it in landscape mode and have this thumbnail still available. So, and this thumbnail from the podcast you can also see when you have the screen locked on your lock screen, for example, and have some really nifty controls for pausing, playing, and skipping and all that. So I like the thumbnails in this app too. Looks really neat. So I can highly recommend the app Player FM for your podcast. It's an awesome app, so I can highly recommend this app. And it's better than Pocket Cast, and it's better than Podcast Addict and so on. So this app is excellent, really. I can highly recommend it. Okay, bye.